Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Ivy League Analytical English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Wesley.
Today it's time for a translation exercise.
好，我们看 A 题组的第一题。他说，政府可能在7月份正式对高价商品或者是服务苛征奢侈税啊。那所以呢，我们这个地方政府当然就 the government 啊，读者应该也知道你指的是哪一个政府哈。所以 the government 那可能做什么事情？当然你可以说 is likely to， 但是呢，这个其实另外一个说法就是你可以说 is poised to do something 啊，因为 is poised to 表示他已经准备好了，大概会做啊。那会不会做其实还没有完全确定，但是大概是会做，所以跟这里语气很像。
And this is an interesting verb. It means to be in a position to do something. You're exactly ready to do something. So they are ready to, they've got everything prepared, 一切就绪. And poise is also a noun, and it means something like 她怎么讲？她的气质很好. She has a lot of poise. So this is a very useful word, both as a noun and as a verb. So she has lots of poise, and the government is poised to start collecting a certain tax.
好，所以这个 P-O-I-S-E-D 啊，就是 poised。所以呢，这个我们这个动词下去之后就很简单了。这个政府已经 is poised to， 然后呢加税啊，你要增加一个什么税？你可以 you can levy a tax 啊 ，a tax，levy 的 L-E-V-Y， 或者是你可以 impose 啊一个 tax。那这里呢，我用的是 impose， 所以你可以说 is poised to impose a luxury tax， 就是一个奢侈税。那在什么东西上面课奢侈税呢？后面加一个 on 啊。所以你可以 levy a tax on something 或者 impose a tax on something 都可以。那高价的我用 high priced 啊，这个 high 一个 hyphen， 那 priced， 那 priced 是要用这个分词，因为它是被定价的东西，自己不会给自己定价，是别人帮他定价的。好，所以是 high priced。那商品呢，你可以用啊，我这里用的是 merchandise，merchandise 特别指的是在商店里面贩售的那些商品叫 merchandise。然后呢，服务啊 and service， 那要注意 service 在这里应该是可以数的，因为不同的服务，所以这里要用复数的 services 啊，你不要只用单数，只用单数的就很奇怪啊，要用 services。然后呢，7月份，当然你可以说 in July， 但是这个因为这是个新的措施啊，所以感觉起来好像这个新的措施都是从哪个时候开始，所以这个7月份应该是从7月开始，所以我的翻法是 starting from this coming July。我在7月前面加了一个 coming 啊，因为如果只说 starting from July 啊，这个当然也没有问题啊，但是呢，我觉得要加一个 this coming July， 感觉有点迫切性啊，马上就要到了，已经随之要来的这个 July 就要发生这件事情了。好，所以我的整个的翻译呢，我现在再重新念一遍啊 ，The government is poised to impose a luxury tax on high-priced merchandise and services starting from this coming July.And
note that merchandise is 不可数. We don't need an S there. Merchandise 是整体的货品的意思，商品。And you said that items don't price themselves, and that is true. People do put a price on them. But on the other hand, the law of supply and demand actually decides prices. So you could say that things sort of price themselves once they're in the marketplace.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, okay.
But still, you need to say high priced.
We need a past participle there. All right, my translation is the government is considering officially imposing a luxury tax on high-ticket items and services starting this July. Now, this is a set phrase, high-ticket items. The problem is that we have another set phrase, which is goods and services. Usually those two go together. We don't usually say items and services. So you have to decide which phrase you think is more important in this context. Do you want to insist on goods and services?Or do you want to insist on high-ticket items? Well, I did a Google check because both of them seem to sort of make sense. High-ticket goods does not sound that good. 可是呢，既然有 services, 那还可以 high-ticket goods and services. But you'll find on Google that there are only, say, 5,000 or 6,000 hits for these, whereas there are over 1 million hits for high-ticket items.Since that is so established as a phrase, I decided to stick with items because that sounds much better with high ticket. So the whole sentence again is, the government is considering officially imposing a luxury tax on high-ticket items and services starting this July. And I have 2 more points. One is use of officially is okay here.We need it because the Chinese says 正式. But on the other hand, if the government is imposing a tax, that implies it's official. You don't really need it.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's-
why I didn't use that word.
I noticed that it's quite redundant, but I put it in there just because the 正式 is there. And very often, somebody who wants you to translate, they'll say, well, where is the 正式? They want to see everything. So I put it in there.
Yeah.
But I prefer Wesley's way of doing it. It's redundant. It's better without it. And the other point is you could also say it this way. The government may officially impose a luxury tax on ... May impose officially 其实是可以省略的 May impose is considering imposing 都可以 May impose 比较好的原因是 we don't have to repeat the ing. May impose sounds better than is considering imposing. 可是就意思来说 considering imposing 可能比较准确。
好，那 Karen 老师这个地方讲的其实是很有趣的一些翻译的议题哈。例如说，这个 Karen 老师他主要讲的是我们怎么样做选择，像 goods and services 常常是放在一起用，所以这两个东西是感觉不错的。但是另外一方面，另外有一个 term 叫做 high ticket items， 这个 term 也不错啊。所以呢，如果说你两个都想要保留的话，其实不太可能。所以最后 Karen 老师他决定说，好，他要保留这个 high ticket items 还有 services， 所以他就这样写，变成 high ticket items and services。啊，那你反而是你如果讲 high ticket goods and services， 反而听起来怪怪的。
是可以的，
也可以
but not as good.
Yeah， 好，所以这是个人的选择问题，其实翻译跟写作都是一个选择问题啊。那另外一个呢，就是这个officially 这个字，其实你要加不加，其实都没有太大的问题啊。因为政府课税当然是正式的啊，不过因为翻译的它上面有个正式的，所以你把它加上去，这样别人看的话会比较会觉得说，哦 ，OK， 你又把它翻出来。那另外一个就是 is considering officially imposing 怎么什么，跟 may officially impose 之间的差别，其实 may officially impose 是比较好的，因为呢 is considering officially imposing 你有两个 in 在那边的声音不是那么好听，但是你要这样写绝对是没有错的啊，只不过呢就这个声音上面来讲，我们可能比较喜欢 may officially impose。那另外一个 is considering officially imposing， 这个文法没有问题，这样的英文也没有问题，只是说重复两个 ing， 有的人可能觉得说，不是那么喜欢，但是绝对没有问题。
对，意思可能比较好 ，because may impose 那是比较笼统，可能会课这个税。But is considering imposing， 他正在考虑可能会这样做，会比较精准一点。
对，所以它意义上比较精准，可是它的声音上面那个硬的声音比较重复，所以这个时候就也是一样，一个译者你要决定说你要在意义上面求精确呢，还是希望在这个 style 上面你要希望自己追求自己喜欢的 style， 那最后你就要做一个决定。所以，但是这两个都是可以的。
And normally you will have to compromise somewhere.
Yeah.
You can't have everything. All right, and the magazine's translation is, the government is likely to officially impose a luxury tax on high-priced goods and services in July. Now, Wesley already talked about starting in July. I prefer that, 因为这样子是很清楚，从7月1号起，那就很清楚。In July 可能是7月中旬才开始，不是那么的清楚。So I prefer starting this July. 那比较有感觉，好像是7月1号就会开始。And the other thing is they stuck with goods and services, but because they used high-priced instead of high-ticket, there's no problem. High-priced goods 本来就是很好的一个片语。So high-priced goods and services is good. Let's listen to the whole translation again. The government is likely to officially impose a luxury tax on high-priced goods and services in July.
好，那所以这个用的字跟我们用的字都是差不多，我们都用有重叠的字，所以我想这个翻译大家听得懂了就好了。
Okay, let's move on to number 2.
好，那第二题呢，我们看一下，他说这项新税制它的宗旨，它的目的是旨在遏制投机型的投资，并且缩小日益扩大的财富差距。好，那这个新的税制其实各位不用强调那个制是不是 system 啊，其实不用，其实这就是一个 new tax 所以 the new tax 那旨在我们可以直接用 aims to 它的目标是干嘛呢？遏制遏制呢有一个动词，我觉得跟遏制很像，是 deter 因为 deter 的意思就是我看出来你要做的或者你很可能会做，然后我告诉你不可以。那跟遏制很像，遏制也是我看到你要做，我就不可以这样子，所以我觉得遏制这里用 deter 来翻，我觉得自己蛮喜欢的所以这个直接翻译自己喜欢这个。
You like to tell people not to do things?
No.
We're teachers, we do that sometimes.
Yeah, OK， 所以 deter， 然后呢， 投机型投资啊，英文其实有一个固定的 term 叫做 speculative investments。好，那 speculative 就是投机型的，是个形容词啊 ，speculation 是它的名词啊，那 investment 就是投资啊。同时呢，要缩小日益扩大的财富差距啊，缩小一个差距，当然我们用 gap。那 gap 你要把它缩小呢，你前面其实可以用 narrow 这个动词啊，就把这 narrow 当动词用。所以呢，你可以 narrow the gap between 什么什么。那这个日益扩大，其实我们用一个形容词来翻 widening 就可以了，因为 widening 当然没有那种日益的意思，当然它有益的意思，没有日的意思，
它有越来越的意思，
它有越来越的意思，而且它 widening 表示怎么样 ？It's still in process， 这件事情 is still happening， 所以呢，用来翻日益扩大，其实应该是可以的，因为那时候我有考虑要不要讲 ever widening。可是 ever widening 其实
too dramatic，
太 dramatic， 而且很强的说一直在扩大啊，随时在扩大那种感觉，好像这个太吓人了哈，所以我就 ever 不用 widening 就好了。然后呢，这个财富差距其实就是贫富差距，贫富差距你可以说the gap between rich and poor 就好。那 rich and poor 都不需要任何的冠词，因为它是对比的的字啊。好，所以我们看到这个句子，整个翻译我再念一次。The new tax aims to deter speculative investments as well as narrow the widening gap between rich and poor.
Very good. I did a couple things different. One is I used investment instead of investments, no S. Both are correct. Investments 就代表一笔一笔的投资 Investment 是整体的投资 And here's my sentence. The new tax aims to check speculative investment and to shrink the rapidly widening gap between rich and poor. A gap between rich and poor is a pretty set phrase, 就是用得很习惯. Especially now, it's a huge problem in the United States. And this is sort of at the root of the big battle between Democrats and Republicans in the U.S. The Republicans are supporting big business and supporting less taxes for big business, but that is making the rich richer. The poor have to pick up what the rich people are not paying in taxes. They have to pick up the slack, S-L-A-C-K. 就是说那个剩下来的这个该缴的钱就变成是那个收入没有那么高的人必须要去缴. And that is widening the gap between rich and poor. The middle class is having to pay more tax, and the people with lots of money are getting more and more money, paying less tax. Widening the gap between rich and poor. That is really at the crux. C-R-U-X. That means 症结. It's at the crux of the debate right now, the political debate in the U.S. It's one of them anyway. All right, so other things that I did differently, instead of deter, which is a beautiful verb, I used check. Check 的缺点是它有两个很常用的意思. Check 是检查 and 打勾, that makes 3. And it also means 遏制, just like deter. But I think it's okay here. And so I used check, I used a singular investment, and then instead of narrowing the widening gap, 因为 narrow 跟 widen 其实感觉有点重复，因为是刚好是相反。你想到 narrow, 自然就会想到 widen. So I used shrink instead, 是缩小, and that gave it just a little bit more variety to shrink. 然后呢，最后 I used rapidly for the Chinese meaning of 日益增加。Rapidly 就是快速的变宽了这个缺口. So the whole sentence again is, the new tax aims to check speculative investment and to shrink the rapidly widening gap between rich and poor.
好，你解释得非常清楚，我想我们可以直接看看这个杂志上面的翻译。
Their translation is, the new tax scheme is intended to stem speculative investments and narrow the widening wealth gap. Now, in most aspects, this translation is very much like Wesley's, which again shows that great minds think alike. One major difference is they say the widening wealth gap instead of the gap between rich and poor. And this is a more 简洁, this is a shorter way of saying the same thing.
好，所以这个缩小这个贫富差距，当然也可以说 narrow the widening wealth gap 这也是可以的。那同时这个杂志上面用了另外一个字，好像 STEM 这个字，STEM 这个字它也是遏制跟阻止的意思，所以放在这里这个 context 之下也是很合适的。
And we often use it in the collocation to stem the flow of something.
就是阻止什么东西的流动，或者阻止什么东西的这个
流失
，yeah.
That's it for today. Tune in next time. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.